Let's talk about ethics for a bit. But we're just making images. Why the hell are you bothering us with ethics, Simon? Well, in the 8 years I've been practicing, I've noticed that every now and then, some people will throw at me a commission that you cannot miss, and that would spark a lot of questioning in my head. Even though I'm running a business and want to make money, at the same time, I want to feel good about the practice I'm running. And also, while archviz doesn't have the biggest impact compared with people we work for, like property developers or architecture, it is still, in my opinion, our duty to foster a certain ethics regarding our practice. On that topic, and to give you also some food for thoughts, I highly recommend reading Ethics for Architects and The Architecture of Ethics by Thomas Fisher. The books themselves are not mind-blowing, and I suspect the author of not having the most thorough understanding of what ethics might entail on some topics he tackles, but these are valuable books nonetheless in order to understand how ethics does play a big role everywhere, even in what we could think are secondary topics, and how ethics will most probably matter even more in the near future. So why ethics matter? Well, if you want your industry to be ethical, you need to act ethically within it. Now, everybody has different stances on different subjects, but it's important to stand by them all the time as well as to actualize them on a regular basis by integrating more knowledge and data into your decisions. As Todd Henry puts it, principles are only principles if you never make exceptions. This is why generally your default answer to new contracts should always be no. And that until you have all the information necessary to take a proper educated decision. While money is the driver of any business, I really invite you to always consider the ethical aspect of any contract, even when you need money, or that it is the contract of a lifetime. We can often come with post-realization of decision, but it's good to have specific ethical stance on some aspects. Now, while the downside is potentially less money, the upside is the feeling of doing the right thing by your own standards. And believe me, there is nothing worse than working for a client where you know you shouldn't be working for them. Work should be fun and enjoyable. archviz is a nice field and can be like that. There are enough clients around the world so that you don't have to pick the crappy, shady ones working in weird conditions. One of the biggest upside, I think, when it comes to taking a stance regarding certain aspect of the business is that it incentivizes you to learn more about said business, dig deeper on subjects, and ask more questions to your client in order to have a better, wider, and broader view of what is at stake. Strong ethics is about simplicity of process, clear onboarding, and criterias. You don't want to be a yes man, and your default answer should always be no, until all your criterias are met. Of course, this sounds easy to say, so when you have experience, but you always have leverage even if you're just starting. Why? Because nobody can force you to work, and you will grow faster by working according to your own principles than against them. If you do your job properly, you generally manage to get clients to choose your options rather than the ones you thought would be best. Also, pricing comes into play. See the dedicated section about that when you want to optimize for good images. Here's a quote from an author I like and mentioned multiple times in the course, Todd Henry. Think about a time when you made a leadership or business decision and had an outcome that you didn't want. Was it a bad decision? Maybe not, even though the result wasn't what you intended. At times, it's tempting to evaluate the decision after the fact and determine whether or not it was good based upon the results. However, this is an ineffective way and limiting way to determine whether or not you acted correctly. Sometimes good decision can lead to hardship, like making less money or turning your back on certain field of an industry that could be very profitable. Depending on the level of your standards, you will have more and more criterias and less potential clients. This is not an issue, but even a starting studio or freelancer should already have standards on how he or she wants their work treated, how they want to work with the client, because this is your work after all, and your professional reputation that is at play. Your organic growth will be a reflection of those decisions and can either lead to more good clients that share your approach or more clients that don't share your approach. Here I want to list a few big themes and subjects that touch on ethics. The point here, of course, is not for me to tell you what to do. You're all free to run your business the way you want. But these are nonetheless topics that boil down to your ethical approach to them and the stance you'll take. I have my own stance on them. You should try to think yours out. Working for two competing teams. It can happen for studios or even freelancers to have two or even more teams coming to you to work on the very same competition. If you're talented enough, you know you can handle both commissions at the same time in terms of workload, but can you handle them in terms of dedication, originality, and impartiality? I've had a situation happening to me a few times, and in my case, I always stuck with the first client that came to me and sent away the other clients generally to archviz peers I knew if they were ever needed referrals. Yes, I could have made more money. No, I wouldn't even have to tell my client that I'm working on the same competition with another team, although they would probably find out anyway. But it's just easier for my peace of mind and my ability to focus to just work for a single team. Maybe the other team had a better project, but this is not what is at stake here. While if you're managing a team, you can probably come up with some ways of making this work, I still find it very questionable and would advise against it. The topic of outsourcing. If a famous studio reached out to you in order to outsource their work to you, personally, I have a very clear idea on how outsourcing should work and a stance on how businesses should be run. If you can't handle the number of clients you have, you either need to grow or you need to charge more. Outsourcing is rarely a symbol of consistency. So in my case, I said no, even though this would have most probably lead to a substantive amount of additional work and money. What, in your case, would you say to that type of offer? Regarding free work, you can have a look at all this section regarding pricing. Now, I just put it here, but we will dive deeply into the topic of pricing later in this diamond. But bear in mind that there are a lot of ethical aspects to how you price for your project, and it's not just down to how much you want in your bank account at the end of the month. Also, the topic of who you want to work with. This can include working for clients that have like shady practices in their own studio, or working on a project where there are clear conflicts of interest, or that are built in some countries you don't approve the politics of. A simple controversial example that is talked about a lot lately is the Neon project and potential issues with human rights, etc. Types of project. Sometimes the type of project you can be working on cannot align with the expectations you would have regarding the architectural field, whether it's regarding the environmental impact, the conceptual approach, or public or private funded projects. Regarding how you'll work, process, deadline, etc. Well, it's always complicated to impose camera angles in artistic direction. What I always make clear is that I would propose things that the result should be within the range of what is visible on my website. Failing to clarify those at the beginning of the client relationship can make you waste a lot of energy and, paradoxically, money. As you might notice, this whole section kind of ties back to the part where I was inviting you to really define who you are as a person and how you want your business to be. Here, the idea is just to include this process of thinking details through into a bigger picture, which is your actual impact on the outside world. As I said at the beginning, if you want archviz and architecture as a whole to be a pleasant industry to work in, you need to actively promote a behavior that will make that industry pleasant to work in. If you charge almost nothing, work for all the worst client possible, create a bad environment for work, and always say yes to any clients, you can't bitch about clients being shitty, your income being low, and clients walking all over you with stupid demands. Do your best to identify what you would like the archviz industry to be like, what you would like your clients to be like, and to foster it by acting in accordance with your stance. Because the standards of an industry reflect the standards of its actors.